Ever thought there must be a better way to get noticed than applying through endless job portals? Now, 95% of people never hear back because their applications get buried in the darkest corner of these useless job portals. Now, I personally hate them and always refuse to work with them, insisting on always speaking with a real human instead of a dumb portal when helping companies hire leadership talent. And it turns out contacting hiring managers directly changes everything if you know how to do it right. So in this video, I'm going to show you the simple steps to connect, what to say, and how to get a real response without sounding awkward or desperate. So let's start with why reaching out directly to hiring managers matters. Now, I spoke recently to a guy called John who'd applied for over 40 roles. Great CV, solid experience, but he hadn't heard anything back. He said to me, Dan, I just feel invisible. And honestly, that's super common when you rely on these stupid portals. Your applications always disappear into the void. Now, most people never reach out to hiring managers because they're worried it will seem pushy, or worse, they'll get ignored and look desperate. But here's the truth. Decision makers want to hear from proactive people. It signals confidence, initiative, and leadership. And these are often the exact traits they're hiring for. Now, I've seen it countless times. A candidate sends one thoughtful message to a hiring manager, and suddenly they're on the radar for roles that never even advertised. And when you rely only on job portals, you are always one of 100 applications. However, when you reach out directly, you're in a category of one. But remember, the goal isn't to ask for a job, it's to start a conversation. It's to show up as somebody who understands their business, not as somebody who's just chasing an opportunity. And that's how you stand out, by showing up where most people don't. And so that leads me directly to point number 2. Who do you actually contact? So if you are going to reach out, the key is knowing who to message and how to find them. Now, a client of mine once told me he'd messaged 25 people at one company, but it was mostly HR and recruiters. And believe it or not, he got 0 replies. Now, the problem wasn't his CV, it was his targeting. He was talking to the people who manage the processes and not the people who have the pain from an open spot on their team. And the reality is, if you're not speaking to the person who actually feels the problem that you solve, your message will always miss. So always reach out to the person one level above the role that you actually want, because they are the ones responsible for the outcomes your role impacts, and the ones who will fight to hire someone who makes their life easier. So if you work in manufacturing, maybe try targeting the VP of manufacturing, the director of operations, or head of continuous improvement. Why? Because these people are accountable for production efficiency, quality, and digital transformation. And if you're in a technical IT role at a software company, try targeting the director of product, the VP of engineering, or the head of customer success, because these are the real owners of delivery, performance, and client satisfaction. And they're often building teams even before HR posts the job. And if you're in finance and accounting, try targeting the partners, the engagement directors, or the head of departments, because these people control headcount for billable work or forecasting accuracy. And showing that commercial insight gets instant attention. But how do you actually find these people? Well, the answer, my friend, is on LinkedIn. So get yourself onto LinkedIn, find the company's page, click the People's tab, and then you can filter by department, function, or even job title. So look out for director of, head of, or VP of, and that's who you want to message, because ultimately these are the decision makers and not the HR or the internal talent acquisition teams. Now, this might require a slight mindset shift, as some of you might be thinking, but won't skipping HR make me look bad? Well, the answer here is no, it won't make you look bad. And you have to reframe your mind to believe that you're actually creating an opportunity, because when you talk to the person who owns the business problem that you solve, you're not just another applicant, you are the potential solution. So now you know who to reach out to. The next step is what to say, and this is where most people get it wrong. So if this video is already making you rethink how to reach out to hiring managers, hit like so I know the information is landing. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you want more real-world career tactics like this every week. And tell me in the comments, have you ever actually messaged a hiring manager before? Because up next, I'm going to show you the exact structure that gets real replies, not silence. And so that leads me to point number 3. What do I actually say? Now, this is where most people freeze. They finally find the right person, but they don't know what to say. So they either send a CV or write something that sounds like a desperate job plea. But here's the truth. Reaching out works only when your message sounds like value, not a job request. So remember, you're not asking for a job directly. You're starting a professional conversation. So your message should do 3 things: show relevance, share credibility, and invite connection, not necessarily commitment. So here's the message structure. Personalize the opener and show that you've done some homework. Next, it should provide some context in 1 sentence, who you are and what it is that you do. And then you should anchor your value, how you can help, what problems you solved in the past, and ideally keep those similar to what they actually need help with now. And then there should be a soft call to action. Would love to connect, or happy to share insights. Now, here's an example if you work in tech, for example. Hi, John. I saw your post about improving time to market in product releases. Great insights. I've led several go-to-market launches in enterprise SaaS, and your focus on scalability really resonated. I'd love to connect and swap notes. And here's an example if you work in finance, for example. Hi, John. I noticed your team at the company recently expanded into a new region. I've helped similar firms optimize forecasting and client delivery models. Would love to connect and exchange perspectives. Now, the key to remember here is your tone. So try to keep it conversational, not corporate. Avoid these long intros about yourself. Try and focus on them, and always end with something open, not pushy. So would love to connect, or happy to share insights. Because the first goal here isn't to get an interview, it's to get on their radar. So now that you've sent that first message, what's next? Well, the magic is in the timing and the follow-up. And this is where most people either go silent or go too far. So let's talk about when and how to follow up so that you stay on their radar without becoming a nuisance. Because when do you follow up? Well, most people fall into one of these 2 camps after sending that first message. So they either never follow up because they don't want to seem pushy, or they simply follow up too soon and come across as impatient. The truth is, a great follow-up is an art, not a science. It's not about chasing, it's about staying visible with value. Now, I once coached a senior project manager who sent a brilliant first message to a VP, then waited, a week passed, nothing, and he almost gave up. But instead of saying the dreaded just checking in, he followed up by sharing a short article about digital adoption trends and just said, thought this might resonate given your focus on operational efficiency. And you know what? That VP replied the very next day. And 2 weeks later, he was in an interview. Now, the key takeaway here is that busy decision makers don't ignore you because you're not qualified. They're just busy and often forget. So your follow-up shouldn't be a reminder that you exist. It should be a reminder of the value that you add. Now, my general rule is wait about 5 to 7 business days after your first message and follow up once after that, and then maybe once again a few weeks later if still relevant. I think 3 thoughtful touches are plenty, and any more and you do risk overstepping. So here's a few follow-up message examples. Hi, John. Just wanted to follow up on my earlier note. I know things get busy. I came across this great article and I thought it might align with the challenges that you mentioned before. And then simply just share that information with a simple sign off of, would be great to connect sometime. Now, if you work in tech at a SaaS company, how about this one? Hi, John. I noticed your team's latest product update on LinkedIn looks like a big milestone. I've led similar go-to-market launches, so thought I'd share this quick example on scaling user adoption. Hope it's useful. And then simply share the example with a soft call to action. Would love to connect sometime. And just keep in mind these simple rules. Keep it light and personal and valuable, never guilt-driven. Add something useful every time you reach out, a comment, an insight, or a relevant market update, because your job is to create micro-familiarity. And when the right opportunity appears, your name already feels familiar. But here's the real secret sauce to staying top of mind. It's not just your messages. It's how you show up around those messages, in your content, your comments, and your online visibility. So here's how to stay on their radar so that your visibility feels natural. Getting noticed once isn't enough. The real magic happens when decision makers see your name more than once and they start to associate it with your value. Because when that next leadership meeting happens and someone says, "Do we know anyone who could help with this?" your name comes to mind first. Now, I remember a senior engineer who reached out to a VP about a new automation initiative. At first, the VP didn't reply, but the engineer didn't stop there. Every couple of weeks, he'd comment on their company posts, share some industry articles with some short commentary, and occasionally even message something directly. And you know what? 3 months later, that same VP messaged him back, "Hey, we're opening a new role. Would you be open to a conversation?" And that's exactly what happens when you play the long game. You stay visible without chasing. So here's how to do it. Engage smartly, not just constantly. Follow their company page and the key leaders on LinkedIn. Leave thoughtful comments that show your understanding, not things like just great post or well said. Try a comment like, "We saw similar results when we improved our OEE tracking. Your team's approach to operator buy-in is spot on." Now, that one comment might do more than 10 cold DMs. Number 2, share your value publicly. Post your short insights from your own experience. What you've learned, what trends you're seeing, and what works in your field. Now, it doesn't have to be a viral comment. It just has to be super relevant and concise. And so when decision makers click on your profile after you comment or connect, they should see evidence of your expertise. And number 3, be consistent, but keep it human. Now, don't overdo it. Engage naturally, once a week or when something feels relevant. The goal is to be familiar and not forceful. And number 4, combine visibility with the direct outreach. So after 2 to 3 weeks of light engagement, just circle back with a message like, "Hey John, I've really enjoyed following your updates on. I'd love to stay connected and exchange ideas around that area." So you're no longer a stranger, you're a familiar, credible professional who keeps showing up. So if you've done all of this, you've found the right person, you've sent the right message, you've followed up with value and stayed visible, the truth is landing your next role isn't about luck or timing. It's about taking control of your visibility. And you don't need to apply to 100 jobs or hope an algorithm notices you. You need to show up directly, confidently, and with intent. Reach out to decision makers who make the decisions. Start conversations, not applications. Add value, follow up with purpose, and stay visible long enough for the opportunity to find you. Because in today's job market, the professionals who win aren't just the loudest, they're the ones who refuse to stay invisible. So if this video helps, hit like, drop a comment to tell me which tip you're going to use first, and hit subscribe for more practical career advice every single week so you can stay seen, stay relevant, and stay ahead. And for when those conversations turn into offers, you'll want to know how to negotiate without risking it. So watch this video right here on how to negotiate a job offer without losing it. It's right here on the screen.